Hey, want to skip those ads and get early access and bonus episodes of all Banana for Scale shows? Hop on over to truestory.fm/join and discover all the cool perks that come with being a member of the Banana for Scale family. Coming up on The Devil's Details, Merry Apocalypse, the reason for this season.
You there, boy!
Oh, yes, sir?
What season is it?
Oh, it's the end of the world, sir.
Oh. Oh, no.
It's the end of everything.
Oh, you don't say.
Yeah, I don't even have to go to work.
You work? You're 6, 7 years old.
That's what I'm saying. I should be retired by now.
Good morning, sir, and welcome to another episode of The Devil's Details, a show where we dig up, decipher, dissect, and deconstruct the many forms of the devil. One of my names is Lester Ryan Clark.
And I sometimes go by Keenan Diaz.
And we're just two lost souls hitchhiking down the highway to hell. And folks, we're here. It's the end. No, not the end of the show. Just the end of the world. No, not even that.
Which is worse.
Yes. Folks, I want to be clear about the reason for the season, the reason for this season, and why we are covering the apocalypse now. Not the apocalypse now. Marlon Brando and Charlie Sheen, etc.
Sheen.
Martin Sheen, isn't that it?
You said Charlie Sheen.
Charlie. Well, you know, a sheen in the hand. As they say, as is that popular idiom. But no, folks, I want to talk about why we have chosen the apocalypse as the topic of this season of our Devil Show. Do we think the apocalypse is here? Absolutely, probably not. But that doesn't mean people aren't talking about it, thinking about it. And that's part of what we're going to explore is just how many times in history people were sure the end times were coming, only to find out, well, I don't want to spoil it for you, so you'll just have to keep listening to find out if they were right. So a big chunk of this season is going to be us taking you through the end times, as it is written in the book of Revelation. Not Revelations, as I and I think many others used to think. It's just the one. But we're going to have many little revelations about Revelation in these episodes. So stick around. We're gonna go through the chapters and we're going to try to space it out so that we talk about only one big thing in each episode. So, you know, all the greatest hits like the Horsemen, the Beast, Beasts, possibly.
Yeah.
We're going to try to make it so that each of them is the star of that chunk of chapters. We might not always be able to do that just because, you know, chapter length is so crazy. Sometimes, you know, they're really long and only one big thing happens. And sometimes there's like a bunch of things that all happen in the same chapter in the same sentence. It's all over the place. But we're going to try to do justice to all the biggies and all the baddies individually.
Right.
Yeah. But before we hurl ourselves headlong into this thing, Keenan, what is your relationship with Revelation?
Yeah, Revelation, which is the last book of the Bible in most of the ways that we arrange it in the West.
Yes.
Right? So I don't know if I've told you this, but when, you know, I grew up Catholic, but I wasn't very faithful. And then when I was a teenager, I was like, okay, I'm going to read the Bible. Like, clearly this is an important book. And even if I, you know, don't have faith, or at that point I was sort of questioning whether I did, I was like, let's read this thing. It's really important. Like, you know, the Bible as literature. Yeah. And I would ask my Christian friends, like, you know, hey, you know, I'm going to read the Bible, you know, start on page 1, go all, and they said, no, that's
start
not.
in the beginning.
In the beginning, right. I was like,
you don't want to do that. In the beginning, there was nothing.
No, but that's what Maria von Trapp had taught me, right? Like, let's start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. Right? So I was like, okay, I'm going to read the Bible, you know, cover to cover. And they're like, no. What you actually need to do is read the Gospels first.
Okay.
And then you go and read the rest of it as you need to. But the Gospels is the heart of the Christian Bible. That's where you should start. And I was like, no. I know the whole song about this from Maria again. Do, re, mi. So I started at Genesis, and it was too difficult for me. And I also said, I'm going to read the King James, even though my Christian friend said, no, read something that's, you know, closer to the way that you can understand American speak.
Yeah.
So I did it completely wrong, and I never got through Genesis, that first reading, let alone Revelation.
Wow.
But I have read Revelation since, because there's so much in pop culture, or, you know, there's just culture in general, that references, especially the King James version, like the poetry of Revelation.
Yes.
Like the Mark of the Beast, or the Seventh Seal, you know, the Ingmar Bergman great film, right? So I have read it since. I had read it kind of like, basically like whenever I would hear one of these things, I would go and look up that chapter or that verse where that phrase comes from.
Right.
But there's so much stuff, the Four Horsemen, as you said.
Right. Behold the pale horse, and the man that sat on him was death. And just like, even it's not grammatically how we would speak now,
right?
But it just sounds so cool. Like, and the man that sat on him was death,
Right.
and hell followed with him. You know.
Yeah, the grapes of wrath comes from the Battle Hymn of the Republic, and that phrase comes from Revelation of God sowing the grapes that He had sown with His wrath, and you know, like all this stuff that's there. So yeah, I have read it, and it is maybe not my least favorite book of the Bible that I've read. That might be Leviticus, but it's one of them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of problems I have with Revelation, so I want to be upfront about that as we go into this.
Yeah. And I think you and me both. But weirdly, I am not as familiar with this one. I know, crazy, right? Like you'd think I'd be all about this one with the beasts and the hellfire, etc. But I sort of stayed away from this one for similar reasons, Keenan. And I'm going to get into those a little bit later. Plus, I know we say this is the book with the most devil in the Bible. This is the devil book.
By far, yeah.
By far, yeah. I still wasn't very interested because he's just a big dragon. Right? That's not devil-y. That's fantasy. He's Smaug. Or Encalagon, for those Tolkien. That's the biggest dragon.
Okay.
Smaug is actually the smallest, or I think one of the smallest dragons.
He's a whittled dragon.
He's just a little dragon.
All right, well, I'm going to be the Tolkien defender here. Like, what's wrong with Smaug? Why would
There's
you want
nothing
Smaug?
wrong with Smaug.
He's a little prince.
He's a little, yeah. Right? What is it? His teeth are like swords, and his claws are like spears. I don't have the full quote in front of me.
No, but I thought you would like a beast who is a Smaug. Yeah.
Yeah, well, no, I do. Like, and I read The Hobbit. That's one of my favorite books. Like, I read it, every couple of years. But it's a different flavor for me. It's different from like when I want a devil story.
Okay.
Right. Plus, going back to Revelation, right? All of the descriptions of our devilly characters, right, like the beast or the beasts, right? They're so like cryptic and obviously like coded. It's obviously like I'm not looking at something with 7 heads and 10 horns. Or am I? And also 7 heads and 10 horns, that, my OCD right there is just like, well, how many horns on each head?
10 divided by 7 to 1.4285.
That's great. See, but like I don't like that my devil, right? Who was a fallen angel and the deceiver of mankind, the tempter, the father of lies, right, etc., becomes this, like at the end of it all, becomes this beefy, muscle-headed, monster, right? Not even, like Dante's big monster, right? He's a dragon, right? And like those are two cool things that I just don't think go together, right? It's like it's not peanut butter and chocolate, it's peanut butter and mustard, right? And I want a dragon story, I'll read Lord of the Rings, right? Or some medieval text, right? But folks, that's just it. The Bible, and this book of the Bible specifically, was still being developed in medieval times when dragons were hot. Right. But again, right, like the weird mixture of like swords and knights and horsemen and dragons and Jesus and the devil and angels, like not only changes the images of those biblical characters, like here in this book, but because it's the last book, and because it's also last in the sense of like, this is what Jesus has been working towards all along. Like he had this idea the whole time. It to me, it pollutes the other parts of the Bible where Jesus is literally saying and doing the exact opposite, right? Love your neighbor, love your enemies, open your doors to the stranger, the foreigner, the immigrant, blessed are the poor, the meek, the outcast, right? Like what you do to the least of these, you do to me. Remember all that, folks? And then in this book, he's like, psych.
Right.
Right? And I don't like that. Like, so I've kind of stayed away from this book.
And that's part of the trouble. I mean, like once you learn at some point in your life, right, that the Bible, the order of the Bible is chosen by people. It's not organic. Like
it's not official. It's not like God said, this is the order of the chapters you're supposed to, this is when you're supposed to find them and dig them up.
Right.
And this is the order you're supposed to put them in.
Like that's kind of there for the first 5 books of the Old Testament, right? Like this is in order essentially. But no, for the entirety of it in the New Testament, like people chose which books to include. Some are not included that might be valid candidates to be in there. And then this is put there last, but it didn't have to be. It wasn't, like I think we all understand that maybe like this isn't the literal word of God if you're studying this, historically, right? But like the fact that it's last has all this import to it that isn't, I don't know, was even intended by the people who put this book last. Yeah, like this is the main, like that's what we do with books we read or plays or movies, like the last thing is the main message, right? Or else why would it be last? Well, it's last here, not for any of those reasons.
Right. Yeah. And by putting it last, it messes with everything else that we've been, I mean, you and me both, Keenan, we've been raised on.
Right.
Like what the message of Catholicism or Christianity or whatever of this religion is.
And that's part of the reason why my Christian friends would be like, you have to read the Gospels first, because in the Gospels, Jesus says, like, hey, I'm going to, there's the old prophecies and I'm going to add on to that old prophecy. And you can ignore most of the commandments except for the 10 commandments, right?
Yeah.
So that when you're reading things that like are disturbing in Leviticus and Numbers, you can be like, oh, don't worry about that. Like Jesus is going to fix that for you. You don't have to actually like sit down and try to think about like what you're supposed to do with that. Like if you're a Christian, right?
Right.
Yeah. But Revelation doesn't have that. Revelation isn't, one of my problems with it is it's not really a book of wisdom, like at all.
No.
so it's not like what Jesus is reported to have said within his lifetime, like the Gospels say it is. It's not like a series of philosophies like Corinthians or Leviticus is, right? It's just so very different from all the rest of it. And then it doesn't have like, it doesn't have like a key to what are you supposed to do with the other parts of the Bible.
Right.
It's not interested in reconciling itself with the Gospels.
Right. And I mean, like, I would go even farther. I would say, because like you're saying that the Gospels, what they do is they take the Old Testament and they're like, well, like that was the old way. This is, I'm
the new way. Right?
I'm the new way.
Right.
And you can think of these as like metaphors and and this and that, right?
Yep.
And then Revelation is like, just kidding. It's back to the Old Testament God and fire and brimstone and punishment and and all this stuff.
Without some of the wisdom, frankly, that is in the first 5 books of the Bible. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And because you could look at those and people could say, oh, but what about this in the Old Testament? And Jesus could be like, well, let's think about it in these terms, right? Let's think about it like metaphorically. Let's think about it. Here's a parable. Here's a parable to to answer your question about what it says in the Old Testament.
Right.
Here, like none of these are parables. None of these are like maybe they're metaphors. They're definitely metaphors, but like none of them are like, now take this and like live your life accordingly.
Right. There isn't any of that.
Because it's like there's going to be no more life. Like this is it. We're done.
Right.
So yeah. But part of it too is I wanted to do this book specifically because of how Christianity is once again being used in our country, the United States, by our president and our administration as a weapon to hurt people. Folks, if you've been with us up to this point, you know how I feel about people who use the Bible as a weapon. Makes me angry how, Christianity or any religion that claims to be all about love and tolerance and, turning the other cheek can have so many people in it who are just so full of hate for women, for immigrants, for the LGBTQ community. And, and this is nothing new. I think we all know the phrase, there's no hate quite like Christian love. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
And I'm a little ashamed to say I didn't realize until doing research for this season just how much of that hate or that justification for that hate comes from this book of the Bible, like especially in American Christianity. I think everybody understands that's why so many young people are leaving the church, because like in America at least is American Christians specifically have a reputation for using the Bible for twisting it into a sword that they can smite people with. And there's this feeling of like exclusivity, like we're part of the club and you're not, right? Completely opposite of what Christianity is supposed to be. And like where everybody's welcome, right? Like even the people I need to remember the actual passage, but there is that passage. It's like, those who say to me, Lord, Lord, and do not follow my word, they won't get into heaven. And those who don't say to me, Lord, Lord, and do follow my word, they will get into like, I'm really, really butchering it, folks. But like nobody talks about that passage. Everybody talks about, the other ones. Everybody talks about like, well, if you don't believe in him, then you're going straight to hell, and all that stuff, right? And if you're not part of the, of the heaven club, of the Jesus club, then, then sucks to be you, right?
Yep.
And also this fascination with hell and the devil that I think is exclusive and unique to American Christianity.
Or, that was there in British Christianity, but
sure,
400 years ago.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And
and it hasn't gone away in America. It just ramped up. We're more
yes,
like that.
Yeah, right. I mean, we call them fire and brimstone preachers for a reason, folks, right? And that seems to be is something that American Christianity, like you say, holds on to. Right. This weird fixation on the devil and what he's doing and where he is and about hell and about who's going to hell. Right. Stuff that's not even in the Bible. Right. Some American preachers will do a whole sermon and never talk about anything that's actually in the Bible. It's just this hate and this hellfire and there's witches out there. We gotta get the witches. Angels, angels, angels. Victory, victory, victory. Right. And again, like I said, this is nothing new. This has always been around, right? Like you go to this state or that state, and you walk into a church and you're going to see a Paula White or a Kenneth Copeland. Copeland? Is that how do you?
If that's the guy I'm thinking of, I think it's Copeland. I think
Copeland. Okay. They've always been here, right? The difference is that now they're in the White House and they're making decisions and passing laws. This is not what America is supposed to be, right? Church and state are supposed to be separate. We all know this, but now we got the 10 Commandments coming back up in the public schools, right? Even as we do away with measures to help give kids in those same schools access to lunch. I wonder what Jesus would say about that, right? I'm going off on a tangent here, folks, but
no, but it's important because if we you and I could live our lives you are someone with faith, I'm someone not with faith, and we can go in the Bible and read the books that we think are the most important. It's understand I'm an atheist, but reading the Gospels as an adult was one of the most impactful things that ever happened to me. It made me want to be more Christ-like, and I tried to live my through Christ's philosophies. Other people, like Corinthians or Psalms or the the Pentateuch, like that kind of thing. But there's a whole other world of people who, for them, Revelation is the key book.
Yeah,
and it's really easy to not understand where those people are getting their ideas from and to write them off a little bit, right? And be like, oh, they're just making it up. And of course there's a little bit of that, but it comes from an actual specific place, and they are focusing on a book that the rest of us are not focusing on.
Yeah.
It's not David or things that that are Daniel or things that people Daniel. People right, that people oh, I understand why that, or Job, right?
How I can take this and integrate it into my life.
Yes.
And live like Job or live like David or whatever.
Right. And we have this whole other group of people who has been, I guess it feels like a secret to us, but they've been doing it out in the open and focusing on the book of Revelation, and that has an entirely different path for them to go down.
Right. Entirely different path, entirely different voice and message and flavor, and it took me this long, folks, in doing this show, to kind of put two and two together and I've, the scales have kind of fallen off, of my eyes, and I'm like, oh, this is where all of those Christians come from.
Right.
Is this book? This is the book that is responsible for that.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, folks, I didn't realize that the reason many American Christians sound so different in their preaching and interpretation of Christianity is because of this book, which seems to be a lot of folks' favorite part, which I'm just going to say objectively, this shouldn't be your favorite part, right? Even Jesus would tell you, right? This is not the thing you should be looking forward to. He'd be like, what about all the things I taught you, right? The Beatitudes, blessed are the meek. You're supposed to be trying to create a heaven on earth, right? Not hasten the end times, right? You're a Christian. You're not an apocalyptian. I just had to make that word up. But yeah, so I wanted to talk about this book's relationship with American Christianity specifically. I think we're going to focus on the evangelicals, which I don't actually know a lot about. Keenan, I think you have a little bit more starting knowledge on these folks. Maybe. And I'm going to be doing my homework as we go. So we'll be looking at it from the American socio-political angle as well.
Right.
Yeah. But then also, that said, I think all of us have a relationship with this book, whether we like it or not, whether you're a Christian or not, because so much of Western culture, for better or worse, is Christian. And a book which claims to be the final text of Christianity, and I guess if you're a Christian, the final text of everything, is going to be inescapable. Right, with a largely Christian culture, right, and so I think it's a combination of Christianity just having its tentacles everywhere around the globe, and then our natural human fascination with endings. Right, it's oh, I saw this great movie. It had a great story and great characters, amazing actors. Oh, how does it end? Right, that's always the question we have, right? And so you say, well, him and Miranda don't get back together. But he gets his own TV show and he still gets to see his kids.
Oh. Boo.
So what does he learn? Well, nothing.
Nothing.
He doesn't learn a goddamn thing.
No.
Great movie. a few good men. Or, maybe nowadays it's like, no, don't spoil it for me, right? We have a fascination with endings, but it's been changed a little bit. It's like, no, don't spoil it for me. I want to experience the end for myself. I want to be there to witness it, to bear witness, to behold it, right? And I want to talk about that too, how so many people seem to expect, maybe even hope, to be there when the apocalypse happens, right? This is a weird one for me, but like I want to examine that as well.
I've thought about that a lot because, like, it's we don't normally call them fantasies, but I think that we do. We tend to like daydream or fantasize about some disaster happening.
Right.
like you're on an airplane and you're like, oh gosh, like you try not to think about these things, but you're like, what if there were something that would happen in an airplane? The most common thing that would happen in an airplane is that, like, if something were bad going to happen, like there'd be some kind of break and you would be like completely unconscious immediately, like you would explode, or like the oxygen would go out and you wouldn't know it, right? But in your fantasy version of it, like you are around.
Is there something I could do? Who could I save? Who could I?
Yeah, exactly. Or even if it is like I fail in the fantasy, like I'm around there and I could see it happening and I could see all this stuff happening, and as opposed to the more realistic thing, right? Like like a common thing would be to be in surgery and you just never wake up. But we don't have that fantasy because like we're not witness to the disaster.
We think we're going to be awake and aware when Dr. Nick is like, what is that?
Yeah, exactly. Right, but like the Bible has sort of told us before about what it'll be like to die, in that the we will be ascended into heaven, and it's kind of vague to us, right? So then this one gives us the fantasy of like, well, no, you could be around for a whole lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, like the stuff, like this is the climax of the movie that is creation, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, and again, like maybe that's part of it is like, oh, I'm gonna be there for Earth's final season.
Right.
I'm going to be one of the actors in Earth's final season. And some of the biggies are going to, like from season 1, are going to come back. And they're going to make guest appearances and stuff like that. And I'll be in the same room with them or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, so, a lot of people expect or maybe even want to be around when the end times happens. Right. Well, folks, be careful what you wish for. But no, like actually, before we read this thing with y'all, we wanted to start out with a brief history of the book itself and how it made it into the canon of the Bible, right? Who wrote it, etc.
Great questions.
Yeah. Right. But okay, yeah, let's start there. Who wrote this thing? Says his name is John. Right, and I'm discovering, I didn't even know that. I didn't even think this because I wasn't even aware of it when I was growing up. But I'm discovering that a lot of people believed this to be the John, like our John the Apostle, the beloved disciple who wrote this. In fact, this is what the church had said for a long time, that he was exiled to the island of Patmos. Is that how you say it? Patmos?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I thought maybe the S was silent or something.
Oh, you might be right. Or if it's Greek, it's like super emphasized.
Like Pamo or something.
I don't know.
And here is where he, and they believe this is where he wrote Revelation. So it's very likely, if you are an older Christian, that you grew up believing this was the case because the church actually said this. They put this forth. However, scholars have found that this is almost certainly not true. And since then, actually since around 1943, in fact, with Pope Pius the 10, 11, 12. Every time I see a Roman numeral, the 12th, Pope Pius the 12th, even the Catholic Church has largely moved away from the idea that this is that same John for several reasons. Before we get into those, like, did you was this news to you? Was this like? Did you?
I never thought it was the original John, so I never made that connection when I learned this. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, so there was never. Yeah,
But I can see how you could feel betrayed by that.
Right, and that's I guess that's an experience that. Like less and less people are having, like as the years go by, because it's becoming more and more known.
Right.
But yeah, like I say, like some of the older Christians, like they were told this.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And this is one of the troubles, right? So he says his name is John, and then we don't know who this guy actually was, or this group of people. We have no idea.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So we say like John to refer to the author. But like that's a shorthand that helps us, but we don't really know who it is.
Right, and even that a bunch of the books of the Bible are kind of like misunderstood in that way, right? It's like you have just because it's called Kings doesn't mean like a bunch of kings were writing it.
Martin Luther King wrote it.
Yeah, exactly. Bet you didn't know that.
No, so we don't know. So sometimes we'll say like the author of Mark or the author of Luke, right?
Right.
But we tend not to say the author of Revelation. We tend to say John, and that's part of the problem of it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. or if you're one denomination, right? The author, i.e., God, who wrote all of this. No. But yeah, so how do we, why do we suspect now that this is not the same John? So firstly, the writing style is very, very different. And I'm not talking about the subject matter, which is also different, but we're going to get into that. I'm talking about the actual grammar. So the Gospel of John is written in this sophisticated, polished Greek, right? Revelation is also written in Greek, but it's really rough. It's choppy. It's full of grammatical errors, right? And the overall, just style doesn't seem to match. It doesn't seem to. It doesn't seem like these are the same person, right? And you would think, if I'm writing one book in a language and then I'm writing another book later in that language, you think my Greek would get better, right? I'm just saying,
Yeah, so he's regressing, you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so we sometimes call this John the John of Patmos.
Yeah, John of Patmos is the one I'm familiar with, yeah.
Right. Even though he wasn't from Patmos and his name wasn't John.
Yeah.
So it's one of those Linda Richman things, right? I'm so verklempt. Talk amongst yourself. I'll
John
give you
of
a
Patmos
topic.
is not either.
He's neither John nor from Patmos.
See, the peanut is neither a pea nor an apocryphal text in the Bible. Nor canon. I don't know. But yeah, so we got the writing style very, very different, and also the grammar very, very different. Another big thing, is that this John of Patmos never even claims to be John the Apostle.
Right.
Now, remember way back in season 2, I think, of our show, we were covering the apocryphal text, the Testament of Solomon, right? Apocryphal in pretty much every denomination, right? Nobody accepted this thing as canon, right? Not even every Abrahamic denomination, not even Christian or Hebrew. It was just everybody, nobody. It was just this funny story with thumb-sucking demons and farts, right? And that's what it was, right? But also, remember how the author repeatedly referred to himself as Solomon, right? So much so that it became a running gag for that season. It was I, Solomon, I, Solomon.
I, Solomon.
Yes. And Keenan created that wonderful character. Well, John of Patmos doesn't even do that, folks. He never says or makes any hint that he is John the Apostle. He's just a John, right? And there were Johns all over the place, right? There were Joshuas all over the place. That's why we had to change the main Joshua's name to Jesus, so, people didn't get confused. Joshua, Yeshua, right? That's where that comes from. Yeshua was Jesus, right?
Right. Yeah. This isn't my joke. This might be a little offensive.
Oh, okay.
but someone was like, Jesus Christ is Joshua the Anointed, and anointed means oil, so you might translate it best as Greasy Josh.
That's one way. Sure. See how easy it is to make the Bible say what you want to say? That's our whole point. You got something in your head or your heart or whatever. It's I want it I want to make this seem like God said this. It's really easy. If you're good with languages, you can do anything. You can what was that website? God Hates Figs.
Yes, that's great.
Because you can find like apparently there's a bunch of stories in the Bible that badmouth the fig fruit.
Yes, there's more. There's many more times where Jesus is mad at figs than he is the other F slur that people use, because he never is mad at homosexuals at all in the Gospels.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah, he is mad at figs quite often.
And people be like, what does that mean? What does that mean? No, it doesn't mean that. Figs were an indigenous thing, and give you a freaking hard time sometimes. Those figs, because they won't grow or they won't, whatever. Yeah. Anyway, speaking of Jesus, that's another thing. In Revelation, when John of Patmos mentions Jesus, he's not like, oh, hey, my old friend and master, my rabbi, right? There's no familiarity. He talks about Jesus as if he's never met him, right? Never physically met him, never walked the fields with him, never had dinner with him, right? He talks about him the way we talk about him, right? Same with the apostles, right? The apostles show up, and he says the 12 apostles at one point, right? He doesn't say the 11 apostles and me, John, John the apostle,
right?
Which you would think he would say that. If he is John the apostle, then his mention of Jesus in Revelation and his mention of the apostles would have a little bit more familiarity to them.
Right. And another clue about the authorship not being the Apostle John is that, so we'll get into this, and you might already know, like, it's a heavily coded text, Revelation.
Yeah.
Like you read this, and either you're like, this is the craziest, like, pre-LSD sort of a
Fever
trippy
dream.
Yeah,
7 heads, 10 horns. And,
right.
Yeah.
That's 1.4587 heads. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's like, what, this doesn't mean anything, or, you're more likely, though, you're like, this does mean something because it's such vivid imagery and it's so weird. And so most people read it, that almost everyone reads it, that this is code. And depending on how you interpret the code, we are talking about issues that were in John of Patmos's life that were not in John the Apostle's life at all. So talking about people who were not on the scene during John the Apostle's lifetime, etc.
Right. Yeah. Like I think people might already know, but like Caesar Nero and stuff like that. Right. Yeah. And
a bunch of Caesars
so many
that John of Patmos was not a fan of.
Yeah. There's big Caesars, little Caesars.
He was a Papa John's fan.
He was.
Even after the scandals, he was a Papa John.
I mean,
fan.
I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. And finally, I think the biggest hint that these aren't the same people is how different the theology is. Again, Jesus in the Gospel of John is all about love and compassion. Specifically, love your neighbor. Well, who is my neighbor, right? Your neighbor is anybody and everybody, right? Your neighbor can be your enemy, right? And you still gotta love him. Right, one of my favorite memes. It's making its rounds now because of everything going on. But it's a painting of the Sermon on the Mount, right? And Jesus is preaching, and he says, "Love your neighbor." And a guy in the crowd says, "Jesus, who is my neighbor?" And Jesus says, "Whoever you hoped I wasn't going to say."
Yeah.
And there it is, folks. It is just that simple, right? We got 4 Gospels all telling you to love everybody, even the people you hate, especially the people you hate. And, where there is hatred, sow love. Where there is judgment or persecution, bring compassion and understanding. Seek to understand your neighbor and your enemy rather than seek to be understood yourself, right? Like the Good Samaritan, right? I don't think people actually get the point of what that story is anymore.
Because we don't hate Samaritans. And we don't worry about the Samaritans coming to take our jobs.
Right. Yeah. I think people don't know what a Samaritan is. I think they just think it means a random good person.
Right.
Like that's how it's used today. It's like, oh, I got a flat tire, but luckily a good Samaritan stopped and gave me a lift. Right. Folks, Samaria is a place. A Samaritan, it literally means somebody from Samaria. Samaria is the region in central Palestine between Judea and Galilee. And Jesus' story is about the hatred between these religious and ethnic groups. So people listening to Jesus tell this story hated Samaritans. They thought they were ruining the country. They saw them as a threat to their culture, to their way of life. Sound familiar? I'm just saying. And so Jesus is saying, guess what? That's your neighbor, the Samaritan. The person you think shouldn't be here, he's your neighbor. But even then, Jesus isn't done. That's not all of that story. The Good Samaritan is not a story about a person from Jerusalem, following Jesus' teachings and helping a Samaritan. It's the other way around. The Samaritan helps the person from Jerusalem. So Jesus isn't just saying, that's your neighbor, the guy you hate. He's also saying, that guy you hate knows me better than you, is actually a better Christian than you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of what is in the gospel is Jesus, like, asking the listeners to rethink things.
Yeah.
Right. So it is like, hey, like the prodigal son, like the Good Samaritan, the prodigal son is about like, hey, we should Jesus, shouldn't we like support the people who have always believed in you and always been good? Like, why are we giving special credit to people who were lost and then found? Like, it's a lot of stories of them going like, why are you asking us to rethink what it is to be good? But
why are you hanging out with quote unquote bad people?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. The established tradition is to everyone cast the first stone, but now it's like let thee who is without sin cast the first stone. Right. But of course, 2,000 years later, these things become ossified. Right. And it's like no, like you just study the Bible instead of like studying the question behind it, and Jesus would be asking yourself to question what you think of as being good or bad today.
Yeah, I can't remember if this is actually in the Gospels, but it was in it was actually a really beautiful like claymation adaptation called The Miracle Maker, with Ray Fiennes as Jesus. And one of the Pharisees asked him, it's like you spend time hanging out with these sorts of people, like why? And Jesus says it's like, well, people who are well don't need a doctor.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's like, why would I hang out with anybody but sinners, right? And he kind of says sinners in this kind of like sarcastic, like he doesn't actually believe they're sinners, you know.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, yeah, that makes sense. Like, why would a doctor hang out with healthy people?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and bringing all that back to, you know, like loving your neighbor and loving the person that you have been taught for whatever reason to hate, to not like, right? And then it just made me think of, you know, like there was that story in the news about the Mexican firefighters who, you know, they crossed the border to help with the floods, the recent floods in Texas, right? You know, and to help people who live in a country where we are currently selling alligator Alcatraz merch. Those are the people that those Mexican firefighters are coming to help, is us, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, that, you know, that gave me pause. That made me really think. It's like, who is, you know, the better Christian here, right?
Yeah. We stole their Gulf.
Yeah, we did. No, we didn't. It's still the Gulf of Mexico. I don't care what anybody says. But that's the thing that gets me is, you know, like bringing it back to Revelation, is during that time, during the time of the floods, people were looking at the news. They were looking at all these natural disasters, right? You know, and then the floods in Texas, because you know, like we've had a string of them lately.
Yeah.
You know, we've had the fires in California and the floods down there, and they're like, oh my God, this is biblical. It's straight out of Revelation. But I guarantee you that these same people saying that are not looking at those firefighters being like, oh my God, it's biblical. It's straight out of the Gospel of Luke. It's the people we hate actually being better than us and teaching us how to be true Christians. Whoa, it's biblical. Nobody's saying that. They're all saying about the earthquakes and the fires and the floods and everything.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like we're missing, you know, that's the sad irony, is that folks looking at these floods are so focused on Revelation that they missed an actual real life gospel moment, right? It happened right in front of your eyes, and you said nothing, or you thought nothing about it, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. And if you're one of those folks who missed that, do you want the end times to actually come? Because it sounds to me like you got a little bit more work to do. Like maybe slow your roll, maybe hold your horsemen.
Oh, you mean because they're if the end times did come, they might go to hell?
Right. Like I feel like the people. I was gonna kind of like pepper this throughout the season, but this is my thesis here. I feel like the people who this is their favorite book and who are like kind of like giddily hoping for the end times to come aren't gonna be on the side that they think they're gonna be on.
Yeah.
And I think it's gonna get more clear as we go. Right. I don't think. You know, the people who get scooped up in the rapture are like, oh boy, Revelation is coming, you know?
Yeah. And we're going to talk about the rapture because we have to, but the rapture, if you Control F in your favorite Bible app, is not in the Bible.
Nope.
But it is sort of kind of related, and the people who come up with the idea of the rapture are borrowing from Revelation because it's about the end times and the war in the war on earth and the second coming. The second coming, that's another phrase from Revelation that we use all the time. Yeah. Right. The pearly gates, that's from Revelation. Yeah.
Wormwood? Well, that's a little bit less of a household thing. If you read C.S. Lewis, maybe, yeah.
Right. But, you know, talking about, like, there are some people who want to, like you're saying, like, why would you want to bring about the end times? But there are people who believe that, as we'll talk about with Revelation. So a scholar who I like a lot is Dr. Bart D. Ehrman. And he has a book which is called Armageddon, What the Bible Really Says About the End, that I have in order. I haven't read it yet, but you could read his blog about him writing this book. And there's a really great interview with him on Fresh Air from 2023 talking about the book. And he's not the first to point this out, but again, like if you live in a separate world from the people who read Revelation and who put that at the center of their theology, one of the things you might understand about the way that the world works today is that there is a significant portion of American evangelicals who feel like it is their job to help fulfill the prophecy in Revelation.
That is so crazy to me.
It's hard not to call them crazy when you're thinking, right?
I didn't and I'm ashamed that I didn't like realize that. Because of course I don't think any of them say it out loud because you know you sound like
like you're crazy. I try to be respectful to people, especially Christians, and that's why I have trouble with like Revelation, which is I think a really dangerous book to put at the center of your theology. Yeah. But there are people who do that.
And it's hard to criticize because it sounds like we're ragging on Christianity as a whole, right?
Right.
But like we just you know got finished saying is like the Gospels are beautiful, even for non-Christians, right?
Yes.
Like, but. Yeah, so just to be clear, like moving forward, like we are specifically talking about this book and its the problems it creates.
Right. Yeah, because there's perfectly nice, peaceful ways to read Revelation. Like, I know it's a violent, terrible book, but you could have developed a theology, as some people do, that look at it as a metaphor for the struggle within your heart or what have you, right?
Yes, I did actually find an interpretation that I do like.
Oh, great.
And yeah, we will definitely explore that as well.
Yeah, like, in America, where we are more, and there's kind of a Venn diagram of people who read Revelation as literal and say promoting violence, who then also hear, say, the phrase jihad in Islam, and think of it as literal, where jihad is the struggle, and it does have the connotation of warfare, but most Muslims read it as the jihad, the struggle within your own heart and within your own faith. Right. Like, to be a better Muslim, to be a better person, to be closer with God.
The jihad of knowing yourself, or of improving your relationship with your parents, or and isn't it funny that, like, we have those too? It's like I went on this crazy crusade of but like we don't hold ourselves to the same account as we do like these other religions. Yeah.
So to get back to Dr. Bart Ehrman's idea, right, which, he's not the first person to talk about it, but when he centers it about Revelation, it's really helpful. So not all the evangelicals who believe in the book of Revelation as being literal believe that it's their job to start a war between Israel and their neighbors. And it's like Israel, the country. Now, again, Israel means the state of being with God. But there's the nation of Israel.
Israel, right?
Israel, right?
God,
is God. But there are definitely political leaders within the evangelical circles who believe it is partly the only way that the end times will come is if the state of Israel itself destroys the Dome of the Rock, which is a Muslim holy place, right? Which is the spot where hold on one second. Let me get this right. Yeah. Yes, okay.
Keenan, why do we choose topics where, like, it's very dangerous if we get them wrong? Talking about Asian American culture in one show, and
all right, I had to do so. I just want to be sure I'm getting this phrasing correct.
Yes.
Okay. So the Dome of the Rock is this beautiful building that is on top of this mountaintop in Jerusalem, where the temple used to be, like the Jewish temple that we
Solomon's temple.
Solomon's temple, which was a real place, and it was really destroyed, partially by the Arabs who came in and took over the area, right? And they destroyed this temple, right? So depending on how you read the prophecy of Revelation, the temple needs to be rebuilt there. Okay. So that is in Revelation, kind of. Okay. The trouble is that the Dome of the Rock is there now, which is a Muslim holy site, because the most sects of Islam believe that Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad, ascended into heaven at the spot where the temple was. So they built a new temple, essentially the Dome of the Rock. Gotcha. So in order for Revelation to happen, if you read this very literally and also add a bunch of stuff that's not in the Bible, the only way for this to happen is to destroy the Dome of the Rock, which would be like a massive war crime against all of, like, a crime against humanity, right? To destroy this thing. Like, a crime against humanity happened when the Arabs destroyed the temple, because it was this thing, and now we have to do one of our own, essentially, right? So a lot of people, again, who are political leaders within evangelical Christianity in America believe it is part of their job to support the state of Israel in getting into war with their neighbors and committing this crime against humanity, which would be to destroy the Dome of the Rock.
So what you're saying is we are making political decisions, not just, like, even just calling them political decisions it makes it sound less than what it actually is. World-changing decisions.
Right. It's like blowing up St. Peter's Basilica.
Because a book told you.
Right.
Because a book kind of mentioned it.
Tells you to do that, right?
Yeah.
So there are people who, obviously there are tons of legitimate reasons to support the state of Israel, because it, obviously, like, I think that Israel is committing terrible, obviously, war crimes, and maybe depending on some ways that people read this, like genocide right now in their war against Gaza. But they're like, supporting the state of Israel on its own isn't, there's justifications for it. But there are, because, like, the Holocaust and creating a state there and having a place for Jewish people to exist. But there are people who are pretending to support the state of Israel for justifiable reasons, who are really supporting everything that they do, including crimes against humanity, because of their own theology.
Right.
And so they're pretending like, hey, if you don't, so, there's this crazy thing that's going on in America if you're not following it, where like there are people like who are facing like deportation in America, like the foreigners who are here like studying in our universities, who are being like arrested and disappeared and deported for not criticizing an American war, but for criticizing a war of some other country. Yeah. Which is really like when you break it down, it's like, oh yeah, why is that? Like why is it that they need to support Israel's war? Like we're not in Israel, we're in America. And obviously there's some people who can support that for justifiable reasons about anti-Semitism, et cetera. But there are a lot of people who are really behind those movements. And it sounds like a conspiracy theory to think this, but they will say it in private to each other. And they're on the record, some of them, that is a no-no for these foreigners in their eyes, because we need to support Israel in order to bring about the destruction of the Dome of the Rock, in order to bring about revelation.
That is the most insidious part about it, is that the craziness of it sort of like protects it, because it's like the people who know what's up, it's like, I know why you're doing this. Can't call them out on it because then we sound crazy.
We sound crazy, right? Yeah. No, but there are people who listen to certain scholars, and you can hear the part that they are. Again, it sounds like conspiracy theory, but there you could trace this. This is really well documented by Dr. Ehrman and other people. Like there are people who are like, you can get recordings of sermons where people are like, I agree with that. And then when you look at what they're actually referring to, they're referring to, bringing about the end times. So again, like there are people on the right who are genuinely concerned about anti-Semitism in the world, which is an actual thing. Like that is an actually big deal. Like that's terrible. But there are a lot of people who are using that who don't actually care about the Jews at all. Yeah. And they are using the plight of the Jews in their quest to bring about the end times.
Yeah. As is evidenced by, the the notable uptick of neo-Nazis walking around here with their swastikas out and with their their Roman salutes. Can we just say what they are? They're little Zeke Heils. Yeah. Everyone's still pretending that Elon didn't do that thing. But yeah, so I mean, just like the hypocrisy again. Like,
why are those people supporting the Israel war against Palestine?
Yeah, they're not. They're doing it. They're doing it for their own reasons. Right. Is what we're saying, folks. And it's like, again, bring it all back to devil stuff. This is why I like stories about the devil pointing out obvious hypocrisy. Right. It's like you pretend to be good. You pretend to like follow God and everything like that. But look at you. Look at what you're doing. Like you're the actual devils here, right?
But to think about to take it seriously from people who really again have this book at the heart of their theology. Like if your job is to bring about this terrible thing in order to start the final war on Earth, in order to kill all of humanity because you are fighting the devil. Right, that's the way that they would think about it. Right, that's a really dangerous. Like, how do you argue against that and say like, no, bro, that's a step too far. Like, you literally think that you are partnering with like Netanyahu and neo-Nazis because you are going to slay the devil eventually.
Right, and that anytime somebody says the greater good, it's actually not good. Right. There's never like I've never heard the phrase the greater good used in a sentence that justifies goodness. You ever realize that? I'm just noticing that just now.
Right. Yeah.
No. So and yeah, like the fact that we're making global decisions. Yes. On this.
With real people's lives. Yeah.
With real people's lives, with countries, with nations' lives, on the line. Like that just, it boggles my mind. But so bring it back to the book, to Revelation, right? So yes, the theology of Revelation is another reason we think it's a different John, right? It's drastically different from our John, the beloved disciple, all right? And folks, remember I said 1943 was when the church stopped heavily pushing that it was the same John. Now, even before then, this book was on some shaky ground. Church authorities were questioning it as early as the 3rd century. Right? Not only did they not think it was the same John, they didn't even want this book in the canon. And I'm talking about like the Catholic Church, right? It had already been accepted by an early church father named Justin Martyr. Of course, that's his name. Of course.
He didn't get I don't know him. He didn't get that because he was martyred. He called himself that as he was going around.
I don't know either. But just like in my very brief research of this, I was like, of course. Like, do you call yourself that, Justin? That's your actual last name. I'm gonna eat my pointy hat. But yeah, and then by the 3rd century, they were already ready to take it back out. So yeah, so it was accepted by this guy, Justin Martyr, and then as early as the 3rd century, they were like, nope, we made a mistake. Get this book out, right?
Yeah.
The Eastern Church rejected it outright. They said, nope, we're having none of that. In fact, it wasn't until Constantine, Emperor Constantine, made, what would you call this, Catholicism? Would you call this Christianity or Catholicism?
Christianity. I don't know if it was Catholicism then.
Yeah. But he made it the official religion of Rome.
Right.
And that's where you get like Roman Catholic and all that. And so then they were like, okay, we need to like consolidate our authority and our like ecclesiastical supremacy. How can we do that? Oh, this book that nobody likes because it's so weird and violent actually kind of supports this church power structure that we want, this hierarchy. So let's say it's the same John, and then we can officially include it, and bam, bada bing, bada boom. Wait, this really is getting, this is like Joe Pesci. We come out on top, the church is powerful, right? It's going to protect you from the beast, right? Never mind that the beast this John was writing about was literally Rome. Before it turned Christian, right? Like nobody's ever going to figure that out. Let's grab this story, let's own it, and we'll be the ones saving them from the beast, right? And then it's like, okay, well, who's the beast? And they're like, that's the best part. It's anybody we want, right?
Yeah. So John of Patmos was coding this thing in order to talk about his persecution as he saw it under Rome.
Yes.
But now we have Rome, who has taken in Christianity as the official church, as in like, hey, gradually you all stop worshiping Jupiter and things like that. Right? Yeah. But we get to take on this this book that is about Christian persecution, even though we are now like putting Christianity at the center of Rome. Yeah. So that has a huge ramification. So like of Christian persecution, there was Christian persecution. Obviously, even today in the world, there are places where Christians are being persecuted. That is absolutely happening.
Yes.
But to put this at the center now of like what becomes the Catholic Church as like Christians are still being persecuted, and that is canon.
Yes. Yeah. And we come to find a little bit later. I mean, firstly, so I want to pick this apart, right? Like firstly, we got the irony of like the villains of the story taking the story and saying, hey, we're going to protect you from the monsters.
Right.
And then, we hear all the stories about, the Romans feeding the Christians to the lions and all that stuff. And then we kind of come to find that that this was a little bit of an exaggeration. It wasn't as bad as we have been led to believe. But then the irony of that is that Christians have played the victim role since the very beginning.
Yes.
Right? And there has been a war on Christmas since Christmas. Since the birth of Christ.
Right.
And yes, folks, let's be serious here. There is a war on Christmas here in America. Like nowadays you can only celebrate it everywhere. At all times.
Only, in December and November and October and in July you can have Christmas.
Yes, you can have Christmas in July. Yeah,
and sometimes they now have Christmas in April and July.
And when you go to Starbucks and they have a little cup that says Happy Holidays, I mean, I'm going to speak for myself. It feels like being fed to the lions. It feels like my intestines are just like out on the floor and lions are chewing on them when someone says Happy Holidays to me. When will the suffering end for Christians? But no, I just found that funny. It was like, oh my God, like even the early Christians were like, oh, we're such victims,
Right, and so so I'm going to call them like Christian myths because it did happen. I mean, there were Christians who were killed back then for being Christians. There were Christians who had to hide away their worship. And so there were Christians who prayed in caves. But the idea that like this was as widespread as you think, like Terminators chasing down Christians in the street and then torturing them and having to have cathedrals in underground systems of caves, et cetera, like that, those are exaggerations.
Yeah, we're comparing it to other religions being persecuted on that level that actually were persecuted on that level by Christians.
Right, like eventually pagans and Jews and Muslims. Right.
Yeah, that's why they call it like all of that stuff. Eye of newt, tongue of dog, wing of bat, and everything. Those are all plant names. Because like the leaf looks like kind of like a bat wing, or it's fuzzy like a tongue or something like that, right? Like it's all code. And because if you actually look into the pagan religions, it very rarely are you going to find any mention of like hurting an animal, right? So you're not going to have like wing of bat, tongue of dog, and stuff like that.
Oh, I see.
But it is all like coded, and it's like we got to protect this stuff. We got to do it in secret, and that, and then that's why they call it the Book of Shadows, not because it's like shadows and darkness, and it's because like it's secret.
Okay, well, yeah.
So like this, again, like this is a phrase that's been coming up lately, but like every accusation is actually a confession. So like all of the it's like Christians are being persecuted and everything like that. It's like, well, it's like what do they say? It's like whenever you point a finger at a person, you got three other fingers pointing back at you.
That's right.
Yeah. Wait, three. 1, 2, 3. Yes.
That's right.
I had to count. Because I was like, the thumb? No.
Because it was in Roman numerals.
Yes. Roman numerals and Roman digits, yes. But yeah, so getting back to the history of it, so we got the Council of Carthage, right, is 397 CE, officially included Revelation in the Western canon. But this was largely due to figures like St. Augustine. Hey, you remember that guy?
Yeah.
Right? He found ways to make this violent, weird book theologically acceptable by basically saying it's like, it's all metaphorical, don't worry about it, right? Which... like that's good and that's bad because like we were talking before about like how it's like, oh no, you should see these things as a metaphor. It's like cut off your hand before you reach for blah blah blah, right? You know, and all that, right? But at the same time, making them metaphors now allows you to have it mean whatever you want it to mean.
Right.
Right. So yes, we're not actually talking about a dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and stuff like that, but this also makes it so that we can make the beast anybody.
Right.
Right.
And we don't have a book that comes afterwards explaining Revelation. So it's just this coded thing that, is either just a metaphor, don't worry about it, or like, it's all metaphor, worry about it. Like, think about this, right? It's the last thing that we're going to leave you with. Yeah, before you go, here's this.
Yeah.
See you later.
So what could this mean? Are we talking about computer chips being, injected into you,
right.
a barcode on your forehead or whatever?
Right.
No, we're not talking about that, but, whatever.
Right. But it was originally, and we'll talk about this, but, spoilers, like it was originally coded to be about Rome and to be about Caesar, but now Caesar is telling you to read it. Yeah. And Caesar's saying like this, so it can't be about Caesar. It must be about something else.
All right. I think we talked about that too with Pilate. And how like once Rome got a hold of Christianity, they made him into a more sympathetic figure, right? Right, because and the theory that Barabbas is actually like when they mention Barabbas, they're actually talking about Jesus, right? And there's only one person that they're demanding the release of, and it's Jesus Barabbas, because Bar Abba, son of the Father, right? Bar Abba. So it could be that the crowd was saying release Jesus, son of the Father, because Jesus was Barabbas' first name, Jesus Barabbas, and Rome, aka Pilate, was like, no, F you, we're going to crucify him. Right. And then Constantine gets a hold of this and he's like, let's make our guy look a little bit better, And so they split Jesus into two people, and and who does that make look bad? The Jewish people. Right. And now we got the spotlight on them, right? So again, like this is all speculation. We're not, certain about this, but like that could have been like the whole thing that kicked off it's like, oh yeah, the Jews killed Christ and da 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 da.
Right. Partially because Rome was deciding to not
make Pilate look better.
Right, but to also not persecute Christians anymore because we're Christians. Yeah. So to persecute Jews with the text.
Right. Yeah. So like we said, you can interpret this in a way that kind of already just like reflects the type of person you are, right? And if you hate a group of people, you can find. If you hate figs or pomegranates or whatever, you can find something in there.
Right. And again, Dr. Bart Ehrman talks about how Revelation really became it's come and gone. Like obviously that there are every couple of generations, people are like, oh, now must be the end times coming because it's all about this coming soon, right? And in America, we're still in this period where it's come up after World War II, and the beast really feels like the Soviet Union, right? And like we're at this point, like, oh gosh, how could we be any closer to end times than now when there are nuclear weapons? So now, like it's always felt like it's the end of the world. Things are always terrible, but now like we could see and name it, like nuclear warfare and the
like fire in the sky, and
exactly, right? Like what is there but this, right? And so then we've sort of been in that mode in America since 1945, even after the Soviet Union goes away, and then we have to sort of reinvent what it is, and we don't reinvent it with climate change, which is legitimate, like as existential as nuclear warfare is climate change, but they don't necessarily want to see climate change in Revelation,
right? Because this is a book about war. We're fighting something. We have to kill the devil.
You can't kill carbon.
Yeah.
I can't even see it. Yeah. Right. Oh, but carbon tax credits, I can see that. That could be the mark of the beast. Yes, these little carbon certificates. Yeah.
Yes.
Or these COVID, what do you call it?
The vaccine. Oh, yeah.
The vaccine passports.
The vaccine. Yeah.
That
It's
could
like
be the
all
mark
of
of
that
the
stuff.
beast, right? Yeah. Because I can see it.
And that, again, that cost so many lives just because we're like, oh, this might be like from Revelation or whatever, right? Yeah. But I want to go back to...
it cost a lot of lives in America. other
Yes.
countries did. Yeah, we had
Other people are like,
over
what
a
are you
million
fucking
deaths.
talking
Yeah.
about? No. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I want to go back to like I was talking about like the Council of Carthage, and I said like people like Saint Augustine like were saying like, hey, let's make this metaphorical. I want to be clear, like he wasn't actually at the council, but like the council was kind of like more of like a ratification of ideas that had been already circulating, and so Augustine, you know, like he does with everything, like all of his tweets are like the most popular, and so he's like, well, what if demons are actually angels, and what if that snake was the devil, and all this stuff, and then so now he's like, hey, what if Revelation is all metaphorical, and so at the council they're like, hey, that's a good take on this. Let's agree with that, right? Yeah. So he wasn't at the council, but like, again, just like, man, if I had the influential power of Saint Augustine,
he's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's pretty good for a hippopotamus.
I know, right? Which means horse, a water horse, right? But yeah, but then by making it metaphorical, right? It gets a little bit scary because who's making the metaphors, right? And not to get any more into the weeds, folks, but this is one of the reasons that like the for the Eastern-Western split, right, of the church, right, and part of that like the broader like East-West power struggle, and some Eastern Christian churches still don't include Revelation in their liturgical readings, right? But yeah, so by including this in the Bible, right, it gave the Western Church, aka Rome, apocalyptic authority, right? Like only the church could interpret the end times, right? Like this gave them enormous control over believers' hopes and fears, right? Like, yes, I have control over, like I can interpret for you what Jesus says or what Jesus means when he says this, right? I also have like authority on how everything is going to end, right? That's a lot of power for the church, right?
Right.
They could threaten, people with visions of hellfire and divine punishment, and like I said, it gave them this hierarchical validation, right? Like these throne room visions in Revelation, right? They support this idea of a cosmic hierarchy that mirrors church structure, right? And finally, it gave them a prophetic legitimacy, right? Like having an apostolic prophecy. That is a prophecy given to them by an apostle, not just some other John.
Right.
It was by the John, right? It gave the church like a special authority to claim divine revelation. It's like we have what is it? Not the 401k. We have the 411. Right?
That's right.
Yes.
The 411.
We got the 411 on the end times, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because you could read what John of Patmos writes as being the ramblings of a mentally ill person of the time.
Right. But if it's John the Apostle, then it's like, oh, shit, all of this means
This
something.
must mean something.
Yeah.
And we're the ones who are equipped to interpret it for you.
Yes, right. It was in fact given to us. Like we are the descendants of those 7 churches at the beginning of the story, right? Yeah. All right. Okay. So what if you're not Catholic? Right. Well, Martin Luther was also famously skeptical of Revelation. His famous quote about Revelation was that it is, quote, neither apostolic nor prophetic.
Right.
And he said Christ is neither taught nor known in it. I like that. He basically said it didn't meet the standard for Christian scripture because it didn't clearly present the gospel. Right. So going back to what you were saying, Keenan, about that being the heart of the Christian Bible. Right. So he agreed with modern scholars that John the Apostle didn't write it. He also said it was too confusing and unclear. Yeah, I'm with you, Martin Luther. Right? Again, 7 heads, 10 horns. I don't know. How many beasts are there? But unlike the other New Testament books, he felt it didn't clearly present Christian doctrine. He was in fact worried about people misinterpreting it. And you can't see, but I am gesturing globally, folks. I think he was right. So in 1522 we got the first German New Testament, and Martin Luther relegated Revelation to an appendix along with Hebrews, James, and Jude. So basically he's saying like these probably shouldn't be in the main Bible.
I don't know his problems with those other books. But
I don't either.
Revelation makes sense to me.
Yes, I agree with him on Revelation. Right. So there you go, folks. Right. Like even Luther thought this book was sketchy, and yet somehow, and this is the thing that just like gets me. Protestant fundamentalists who claim Luther as their guy treat Revelation now as gospel truth. And American evangelicals think they know better than the guy who founded their whole Reformation. That's the crazy thing to me. It's like the Catholics have kind of like largely backed off.
Yeah.
And the ones who like initially opposed it were like, this is literal truth, 7 heads, 10 horns, all of that stuff, right? So you got the people who are against it today accepting it back then, and the ones accepting it back then against it today, right? Like all swapped around, right? Historically. But we're not going to stop there, folks. That would be unfair and inaccurate. That would be like somebody saying, "Oh, well, did you know the Republicans were actually the ones trying to free the slaves, and the Democrats?" You got to say it like that. They were the slave owners. Bet you didn't know that, you liberal.
Oh,
Every time you got almost have an aneurysm.
Yeah.
Biden. Sorry.
Never
Yes,
heard
yes.
that part in your voice before. That's really crazy.
No, that's my George C. Scott. It's like, but yeah, like yes. We read that chapter in history class as well, right? And then we read more chapters. What? There's more? Yes. And yes, so there is more to this story too, right? How do the followers of Martin Luther, who famously hated this book, suddenly have it as their favorite book? It is a crazy journey. So, and I'm going to try to do it justice here. I'm going to try. I'm going to give you the TLDR version.
The 401k.
The 401k. Yeah. Okay. So after Luther, Protestant theology split into different streams, and the English Puritans were way more into apocalyptic thinking than the German Lutherans. And then when Puritanism hit America, it mixed with this like frontier revivalism and this thing called the Great Awakenings, which is like a massive like religious revival movement that like swept through the colonies in early America. Right, the first Great Awakening was like 1730s to 1740s. Right, it features preachers like Jonathan Edwards and George Whitfield, I think probably Whitefield, whipping crowds into emotional frenzies with vivid descriptions of hellfire and divine judgment, emphasizing dramatic personal religious experiences over formal theology. Right, and then
Jonathan Edwards, the sinners in the hands of an angry God, and people, which is a really well written piece. You read it in rhetoric classes, but yeah, to think people being like, yes, you're right, I am one of those sinners, and like I will follow you anywhere. It's hard. It's hard for me to like look into that and see like why someone would be like, yes, I am the people you're talking about being destroyed by God.
Have you have you considered converting to Christianity? Well, no. Like, what do you have to offer me? It was like, well, sinners in the hands of an angry God. That's really, oh my God, where do I sign up?
Yeah, exactly. But that's
I'm like being held by this giant hand over this pit of fire, and like at any moment he could just drop me in. Wow. Are there donuts?
Not for you.
So yeah, and then we get like the second Great Awakening. This is like 1790s, 1840s, and this was even crazier. We got like frontier camp meetings where people would like fall down and they would speak in tongues, right? Not any actual languages. They would just be like hasamada pakabada, you know.
Right, but the thought is that you were being inspired through God to speak in languages that you don't understand. But so they think they're actual languages when they speak in tongues. Yes.
Yeah. That's not relevant at all in today's news. No. Or no, I think lately people have been saying, oh no, that's angel language.
Yeah, it's some kind of ancient language that you can't translate because you haven't been touched in the moment by that. Yeah.
You know what that sounds like? It sounds like somebody saying, no, don't look it up. It's actually a language that you can't look up. So there. Yeah. And so people speaking in tongues, having these visions, right? And this became like the normal thing, right?
Yep.
And these revivals sort of like democratized religion, making every individual feel like they could receive direct revelation from God.
Right.
And they absolutely loved like apocalyptic imagery because it was dramatic, it was emotional, and it made people feel like urgently important, right? Remember that Eisenhower matrix, right? It's like important, urgent and important, important, not urgent. I'm not going to go into the whole thing. This makes my OCD feel bad. But this created like the perfect cultural soil for apocalyptic speculation. But then, folks, the real game changer was this guy named John Nelson Darby and dispensationalism in the 1800s. So it was a completely new theological take that made Revelation the roadmap for future history. Future history. Think of that phrase. Future history. Right? Like with detailed timelines for the rapture, tribulation, because those are already in there now. Even though they're not in there,
right?
They're in there by now, and then this got imported to America and exploded in popularity through the Schofield Reference Bible in 1909, which had Darby's dispensationalist notes baked right into the biblical text itself, making it seem like official scripture.
Right.
And then so American evangelicals ate this up because it promised they could predict the future. It gave them detailed charts and timelines to study, and it made them feel special as the final generation who would witness Christ's return. So, ironically, modern evangelicals aren't following Luther's Reformation theology at all. They're following a 19th century theological innovation that Luther would have absolutely hated. They claim to be, these biblical literalists, following, Reformation principles, while embracing exactly the kind of speculative apocalyptic interpretation that the actual reformer explicitly rejected. Right? It's like claiming to follow Galileo while still insisting the sun revolves around the earth. Hey, it's Galileo. Still under house arrest from our Paradise Lost season. I guess you could say we've come full circle. Hey, Galileo? Oh, he's motioning for us to leave. All right, see you later, Galileo. After a while, exile. I don't know. Whatever. But yeah, folks, like that is the crazy, weird history of this crazy, weird book in a nutshell. And we're not quite ready to dive into it just yet because, as Keenan alluded to, first, we got to talk about the rapture, which is not in Revelation, but which purportedly kicks the whole thing off. So we're going to look at it, and we're going to look at where the whole notion of a rapture comes from and how it got tacked on to the beginning of, the beginning of the end. So that is next week. For now, I am exhausted. I feel like I've been talking for 40 days and 40 nights. How about you, Keenan?
Yeah, but I'm excited because this is our most devilly book of the Bible. We don't quite know how many episodes we're going to get out of this season. I think I've been telling Lester, like, we could... Like, there are obviously other shows they could do, entire shows just about Revelation because of how influential it is. So, yeah, but I'm looking forward to it. We have a whole bunch of really cool things coming up. I mean, we could do so much on the beasts, the several beasts, the great red dragon, the moon bathed in the sun, the mark of the beast, which is separate, I would say, the rapture, the tribulation, the final war, the second coming, the pearly gate. There's so much stuff here.
All of the seals. All of the seals.
All
seven
seal
of them. Yeah.
Because the seven seals have seven horns, and the horns have seven trumpets.
Yeah, once you get into it, it's like the writer was like he got to the seventh thing, and there's like, oh God, there's like 100 other things I still want to talk about. So it's like within these last of the seven seals are like seven other. It's like those what do you call it? Those Russian dolls. They just kind of like there's seven things inside this one thing, and there's seven of those, and right.
And one of the things we want to talk about as well is some of the American style prophecies that go wrong. Some of those are some of the saddest moments in American history, so I don't think we're going to do those. But we'll try to find some fun ones, or there are some legitimate branches of sects of Christianity that have arisen out of those and have kind of rejected their apocalyptic past. Yeah.
So there is there are instances where people were kind of like Linus waiting for the Great Pumpkin, and it's. Well, I still don't want to say it's funny. I just want to be like it's a little bit more like womp womp, And then, but then
there are some,
there are really sad, like terrible ones,
murderous ones.
So I mean, we'll mention them, but we're not going to
That's not funny. No, but there's so much here that we can go into that I'm looking forward to. I think it's a great idea for a season, and like I said, you could do a spin-off show that's just about Revelation. You can make it your whole life.
So keep an eye out for that. And fitting, the end of this month, we're going to be talking about, it must have already happened. Much like the question of whether or not all of the stuff in Revelation has already happened. Is this history or is this future history?
Prophecy.
But no, if you're a member, then you must have already heard our episode on Constantine with Keanu Reeves and Tilda Swinton.
John Constantine, not Constantine the Great, the Emperor.
No. But like saying Constantine made me remember it. Yeah. So write in and tell us how we did, because we haven't done that yet. But we're going to talk about it. Yeah. But folks, this has been another episode of The Devil's Details. I've been Lester Ryan Clark. You can summon me on all the socials as Lester Ryan Clark.
And I've been Keenan Diaz. You can invoke me on Letterboxd and Instagram as Howdy Keenan.
Yeah. Find more of our shows and other really cool podcasts at True Story FM. And feel free to drop us a message at bananaforscalemail, MAIL, @gmail.com. We got our Facebook listener group, Banana for Scale. That's a community for all of our shows, including this one. It's a private group, but just request to join. We'll let you into the Infernal family. If you want more, consider joining us at truestory.fm/join. Look for Banana for Scale. That's us. You get bonus episodes of all our shows, access to our Discord, and you get your episodes a week early and ad-free. Pretty cool. Just $5. Wouldst thou like to live deliciously? We're not even asking for your souls. Just give us a 5 pentagram rating on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to our show. That and sharing the show by word of mouth or on social media is going to help our little podcast grow and find more cool people like you. All right, folks, until next week, because there is going to be a next week. Please don't worry. Love and hisses. Mwah. And like I said, right, it gave them, and like I said, it also gave them this, this plane or whatever. Well, here it is, folks. Here we are.
It sounds like you're at an airport
I
sometimes.
know. It's, I'm actually looking out. It's a great red dragon out there.
Oh.
And stop talking about me. I'm not a metaphor. and I'm bigger than Smaug. Did you know he was the smallest dragon?
Oh, Smaug, the smallest dragon.
Yeah.